Morning everybody, welcome to Sunday's edition of Indycar. My name's Gordon Ross and I'm broadcasting from an extremely cold Partick this morning. It's -5 out here, there's little snow flurries, we've got freezing fog and we've got ice, and it took me half an hour to chip it all off the car this morning. However, here I am, and at the beginning of the show I put a caption up about neoliberalism, British nationalism, socialism, basically all the isms that you hear talked about in politics. The reason I put that up at the beginning of this programme is because Brexit has revealed the true colours of a lot of political parties, and also reveals the reasons why many politicians who you wouldn't expect to do so are supporting Brexit. Now, I've talked about Brexit a lot, and as you know, I'm generally speaking a pro-European person, and until very recently I would have stood and defended Europe to the death. However, a number of things have changed since Brexit began, since the whole 18-month period of agonisingly slow progress towards the fudge that we now have, when that all started. And what I mean by that is it's given me a chance to have a look in detail at the reasons why particularly the British Labour Party is so keen not to upset the Brexit apple cart. Now, if you think about things at the moment, if anybody who watches the news at all is probably completely terrified by the prospects of what's happening in the world today. Everything is in upheaval. We have a seemingly mad American president who seems to be wanting to destabilise the entire region of Palestine and Israel at the moment, by provoking the Palestinians by moving the American consulate from Tel Aviv into Jerusalem and recognising Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Now this is a provocation, obviously, because it's been carefully prepared to cause a lot of damage, to provoke people coming onto the streets. And Trump knows at the moment that the Arab League is virtually powerless to rally any support for the Palestinians, because the normally supportive countries of moderate Islam, such as Saudi Arabia, and I'm calling it moderate Islam in its loosest sense, but let's put it this way, the Islamic states which are not engaged in fighting with the West, I'm talking about. So we're talking about states around the Gulf, right? And they are now politically aligned with Israel. And this alignment of Israel and these moderate Arab states against the common enemy, which is Iran at the moment, means that Israel can effectively start to move into places like Gaza and put its stamp on them, and there is nobody there really to help the Palestinians. The Arab League used to be able to muster a lot of bodies on the street, used to be able to get people out, but since the Arab Spring, the moderate Arab nations such as Tunisia and Egypt are now really too westernised to want to lift a finger and really get out on the streets to support the Palestinians. So this is a calculated move to force an end game in Israel. So there's a lot going on there, first of all. And then in Europe, we're now hearing word that Jean-Claude Juncker, I never remember. But anyway, Juncker and his mates, and particularly Macron in France, and also I believe one of the leaders of the SDP in Germany, are all proposing a United States of Europe with its own army, and with its own all-powerful president, and with its own all-powerful kind of chancellor, somebody to control all of the funding in Europe. Now this, if anything, has really rung alarm bells with me, because it tells me something about the way Europe now sees itself. In the past, Europe has been defending itself by putting all its eggs into the NATO basket. In other words, aligning itself with the United States of America, which is the major player in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So there, up until recently, the European Union has depended on the USA and all of its other states to defend itself. But it seems like the European Union does not wish to align itself with America anymore. It wants to become a United States of Europe. A little bit like America wants to defend itself, does not want to be dependent on somebody as unstable as Donald Trump. So Europe is in a bit of an upheaval, and this places the Brexit situation in a completely different framework, a completely different perspective. Because Brexiteers could, if you look at it this way, be seen to be helping us to escape from this all-consuming United States of Europe, something which Britain has resisted joining in the past and has refused, in fact, to go along with, like a lot of other countries have refused to go along with it as well. Britain didn't want any part in this United States of Europe because it would have taken defence decisions away from the United Kingdom. Now, whether you're a Brexiteer or not, and whether you're a Scottish independence supporter or not, you have to realise that your defence has got to be devised by you. If your country is threatened, then you need to be able to respond in a suitable way to protect yourself. If the whole of Europe is threatened, you need to be able to respond by becoming an ally. However, if you're part of a United States of Europe, then your own defence is out of your hands, and you might be dragged into more wars, just as we have been with America, with Tony Blair dragging us into a war unnecessarily and without justification, into an illegal war. So we'd be jumping out of one frying pan straight into another one. The question is, will this United States of Europe actually happen? We know that France and Germany have political leaders who are in favour of it. We know that Juncker is in favour of it because it strengthens his position and makes him more powerful. The question is, would you want that? So when it comes to looking at Brexit, we have to ask ourselves, why do people like the Labour Party support Brexit when it is clearly going to hurt workers? It's going to hurt the workers everywhere, because it is the workers' jobs which are going to be sacrificed in order to leave Europe and to pull up the drawbridge and to become a small island state again. So why does Labour support it? Well, British Labour sees this as an opportunity now to bring Britain back together, because what people like Jeremy Corbyn really want is for the whole of the United Kingdom to become a socialist state, so that it can renationalise all of the things that the Tories had privatised: the transport infrastructure, the big steel industries, the coal mining industry, everything that was taken from public ownership and sold off by the Tories. That's what Labour wants to control. But they want one nation socialism. And this is the aim of the Labour Party. And if Brexit goes ahead, if it goes ahead as planned and Britain becomes a single entity again, the four countries of the United Kingdom together, still as the UK, this is Labour's dream, because then the Tories will be deeply unpopular. Labour can take over and renationalise all of the national industries that they want, not worrying about the huge job losses which will be caused by the process of leaving the European Union. They see it as an opportunity to seize power and to gain a foothold for a soft socialist Britain, where we go back to the 1970s. And it's almost as if the Labour Party wants to do what the Tories want to do. They want to return to the 70s. They want to go back to the time when Labour had power, when the unions had power, and when we didn't have any power because there were power cuts. They want to return to the age of union strength and building up the workers' unions again. But the problem is the cost of it. The cost of it is going to be jobs, not just in the short term, but in the medium term. It's taken something like 35 years for Scotland to recover from the Thatcher era, when industries were closed or sold off. And if it's taken us 35 years to build up our economy to the point where it's making money, how long do you think the UK, with its terrible record of failed exporting and with its bad productivity, how long will they take to bring us back out of this crisis that they're creating? It could take 50 years before the economy recovers, and in that time possibly millions of jobs could be lost in manufacturing industry. We don't know what will happen, but it's clear to me now, and it must be clear to those of you who watch this programme, when you listen to what I'm saying here, that the Labour Party views Brexit as an opportunity to seize control from the Tories. It's purely party political. It's nothing to do with the good of the country. It is zero to do with the workers. It's all to do with Corbyn and his chums wanting to seize power in the UK. Scotland has a long socialist sort of trait running through it. We have a natural tendency to want to support workers and to want to support the poor. And also we have a long history of compassion for people who cannot work. Therefore, we are the enemy of the Tories. But we also want jobs, and we believe strongly in creating new industries. And now we believe in creating green industries. We want to lead the charge in the environmental industries sector. We already are doing that. But the point is that if we allow either Labour or the Conservative Party to control Scotland after Brexit, then we won't be able to do any of that, because we'll spend 50 years trying to rebuild our economy. And when I say our economy, I mean trying to rebuild the British economy for Britain, because that's what our job will be in the future. We are going to be the people who have to pick up the pieces of Brexit and glue them back together again and start exporting businesses and try to show the rest of the UK how we were so successful before they destroyed our export economy. So, to sort of sum this situation up, having thought about it and having tried to put the pieces of the bigger picture together, the world economy is in upheaval. The major power blocks are rearranging the furniture at the moment. They're realigning themselves. The big players at the moment are going to be the Arab states and Israel, because the Arab states and Israel, along with America, are looking to carve up the Middle East and to create peace in places where they want to extract oil. They've already taken Syria, they've taken Libya, and they've taken Iraq out of the equation. Those were the most unstable and the most Islamist places. They've created chaos there, so those countries cannot function anymore. So they're no longer a threat to the petrodollar, they're no longer a threat to the moderate oil states in Saudi Arabia and around the Persian Gulf. And this is what that's about. Europe, in turn, is trying to rebuild itself as a United States of Europe. They don't like Trump, and they don't want him having his finger on the nuclear button along their border with Russia or Ukraine or anywhere else. They're trying to build bridges with Ukraine at the moment. They're trying to build bridges with Russia at the moment because they want trade, and they want people to have their countries aligned so that they can trade more easily. Effectively, what Europe is a massive capitalist trading hub, and it sees itself in that way. It's not to do with socialism, it's not to do with people or prosperity. That's sort of a backseat passenger in this. So Scotland's position in all of this is one wee country which is looking at all of this going on round about us and looking at the ambitions of these politicians in London who want Scotland to be ready to pick up the pieces of Brexit. They want our industries to carry the load of the catastrophe that they're preparing. And it's not something that I would ever entertain. I don't know about how Scotland will trade with Europe after Brexit, and I don't know how Scotland would trade with Europe after independence. But what I do know is that independence gives us the option to choose. If we stay with Brexit, we're going to be dragged along with the UK, and we are going to be forced to shovel all the muck that they've created. We're going to face massive job losses. Our industries will contract, and we're going to bear the brunt of the punishment that will be Brexit. So it's time for us to stop thinking about ourselves as just a wee country that wants independence. We are a wee country that wants independence, but we have to take into account the bigger picture as well. This doesn't put me off independence. The situation in Europe is warning us that Europe is feeling a bit unstable at the moment as well, and it is trying to consolidate itself into a super state so that it can protect its borders by itself without having to go to America with its unstable leader for that. For my part, I would like Scotland to be independent and to be able to decide itself what its defence should be, and to defend Scotland with conventional weapons and not nuclear ones. I don't know if it's ever occurred to you, but most of the nuclear states who could threaten Scotland have nuclear power stations. You don't actually need to drop a nuclear bomb on somebody to threaten them. You just need to hit their nuclear power station with a large enough conventional weapon to cause an explosion which throws radiation all over the place. We've seen what happened in Fukushima in Japan after the tsunami wrecked their power stations. Entire areas of Japan are uninhabitable now because of that catastrophe, and will be for decades to come. You don't need to nuke somebody's country to disable it. You merely need to be able to hit one of its nuclear power stations, and all of the nuclear countries, the nuclear armed countries, will have a nuclear power station or a nuclear research lab or somewhere where they enrich their uranium. If you hit that with a big enough weapon, not only does it take out a lot of their capability, but it would wreck a large part of their country. Big enough threat, I think, to avoid using nuclear weapons. However, I'm off topic here. Scotland is now in a position where it's the only country in the United Kingdom which has an escape route from Brexit. I've mentioned this before. I've called it the eject button. And Scotland needs to have its referendum next year for the simple reason that we have to plan our escape. There's no point in us just voting for independence and then hoping everything will be all right. The Scottish Government has now put in place the building blocks of a new state. And thanks, strangely and ironically, to the Labour Party, and also in some measure to the Council of Europe, Scotland got devolution in 1997. And because it got devolution in 1997, the European Union and the Labour Party, by the way, accidentally gave Scotland the first building blocks of independence. It gave us what we didn't have before. The reason we've been powerless for so many decades is because we had no centre of government. Now we do. The Parliament that was given to us, or the one that we voted for and the European Union helped to press for, that Parliament is the key element in the structure of a new Scottish state. The SNP, when they came to power, made sure that they changed the name of the Scottish Government from the Scottish Executive, which of course the Unionists or the British Nationalists would like, to the Scottish Government. And that was an important step. I don't know if anybody remembers when it was done, but I remember when I first heard that term and I thought, yes, this is the first time I've heard the word Scottish Government spoken. And now we've got used to the fact that we have a Scottish Government. And from that base, the SNP has built up and consolidated the country into a nation which runs itself. The only thing that we are dependent, and I use the word dependent in inverted commas, on England for, is the tax money. Because all the taxation and the revenues that we take, and we take a lot of them, are sent away to London. And then we have to hope that they return enough of that to us for us to live on. In the meantime, they take a huge chunk of it, which they then distribute around the other parts of the United Kingdom, which are not doing very well. And that's part of being in a country where you pool and share, as Gordon Brown would say. In other words, where you rip off one part of the country and spend the money in areas where your government's been completely useless and let them down. However, because we have this now, we have Holyrood, we have to defend Holyrood. If we wait until after Brexit, when all of these laws are repatriated by the so-called repeal bill, when they go back to Westminster, that is the time when Scotland is most vulnerable to having all of its powers removed. And believe me, the Tories and the Labour Party would like nothing better than to shut Holyrood down and completely declaw the Scottish line and stop us from having the functioning government that we need to be a fresh new state. So this is why I believe now is the time that everybody who believes that we shouldn't be Brexiting, everybody who worries about their job and worries about the jobs and the security of their children and the young people growing up in Scotland today, this is the time when you have to ask, when should this referendum take place? It must take place well before the 29th of March 2019, because after that date we have no protection for Holyrood. It will be swept away. The first act of the new independent Great Britain, the one that's now away from Europe, its first act will be to close down every devolved assembly except, interestingly, Northern Ireland, because they daren't do that at the moment. But they'll close down the Welsh Assembly, they'll especially close down Holyrood, because it's the only way they can control Scotland. If the SNP is still sitting in Holyrood, it's a threat to the United Kingdom. It's always an existential threat, because there's always then the cloud of independence hanging over the United Kingdom. So my belief is that we must vote next year. And if we do that next year and we can extricate ourselves from the United Kingdom as it Brexits, then our freedom, our leaving of the United Kingdom must predate Brexit. Or at the very least it must suspend the flow of laws from Brussels back to Westminster. It must stop that, because if it doesn't stop it, the British state will use those powers to close Holyrood down, and then independence will be off the table for 100 years or more. Who knows how long? We will never get the opportunity again. You may be a Leave voter, you might be a Remain voter, but if you are an independence supporter, you must support a referendum next year, because if it doesn't happen, as I say, it will never happen. It won't be allowed to happen. There's a lot of work to do. I've mentioned blockchain voting to you before, a secure voting system online which would allow us to vote for independence, knowing that our votes are counted and that none are being dumped in polythene bags and dropped at the side of the street, that none of them are being deliberately mishandled and put in the wrong piles in front of TV cameras. We'll be able to vote knowing that Ruth Davidson has not had her grubby paws in the ballot boxes and started opening and looking at people's votes illegally and then getting away with it. There won't be any of that. So we have to have a secure and a quick vote, and it needs to happen next year. After that, when we're free of the United Kingdom and able to make our own choices and our own decisions, we can look at Europe and we can ask them, what are your plans? What are you going to do with this defence force of yours? Because we don't want to join you if we are giving away our ability to defend ourselves to somebody else. It would be crazy. It's the one thing I actually agree with in terms of the Leave voters, is this ability to defend your people. It must rest with your own government. It's fine to be a member of a bigger alliance which protects Europe, quite happy to help defend Europe if it were threatened. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to have the choice. And if we go with the United Kingdom into Brexit land, it's a vast black hole of nothingness. We don't know what happens after that. We don't know what will happen. All we do know is that all the jobs in this country are at risk as soon as we Brexit. Anyway, I'm going to end this rather lengthy broadcast today just by saying, think about what I've said and think about whether Europe is a place that you want to be. But the main thing is, talk to people and try and impress on them the fact that we must vote for independence next year. And if people are swithering about whether to vote yes or no, just say to them, say, listen, you don't like Brexit, do you? You're scared of it, aren't you? This is the one opportunity you will get to escape from it and to be able to make a choice about how your country is run in the future and where it trades and how it trades. You won't get another opportunity, because neither the Labour Party or the Tory Party or the Lib Dems or anybody else in the United Kingdom parties will want you to have any power at all. After Brexit, Holyrood will be shut and you will be powerless. You won't be able to change anything. So if you're worried about Brexit and you're worried about your job and your children's future, you have to vote next year for independence. When Alex Salmond said it was once in a lifetime, it was a off-the-cuff comment in 2014 that was taken out of context and used against him. But believe me, the next referendum is almost definitely going to be once in a lifetime, because the Tories won't allow it another referendum, and they definitely will not allow a referendum after Brexit. Okay, I'm off. I've got to do a bit of work today, try and fight my way through the fog and try not to slip on the ice. I hope you guys have a nice, peaceful Sunday. Pass the message on to everybody you know. Get people to watch the show if you can. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.